One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. Are you thinking about creating a podcast in 2020? Because as of right now, this episode, as it's airing, Profit Podcasting is open. The doors are open, but just for 10 days. So the doors are closing again on December 10th. So if you're listening to this at a time later than when it goes live, then the doors are closed. Sorry, you missed out. Try again next time. But if you are ready to start, launch, and market your podcast with some of the other entrepreneurs that are part of this wonderful community, then I invite you to join us. You can find all the details at profitpodcasting.com. And I hope to see you there because we have a whole lot of fun. Today's episode is so exciting. I know I say it every single time, but I was so excited to share this interview with you because I selfishly asked for this interview to happen because I have been wanting to add someone to my team, and it's really scary to hire someone and to figure out like, well, okay, I know I can only pay him this much. I can't afford to hire someone full time. Where do I start? What tasks do I outsource? Like, where do I even begin? So that is why I asked today's guest to come on and share all the knowledge that he knows about virtual assistants. And not only just working with a virtual assistant, but how they can actually help you grow and scale your podcast. So let's dive right in. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach entrepreneurs how to start, launch, and market their podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Because if you've been thinking about creating a podcast for a while, well, I'm so glad you found this show. Think of this as the shortcut / time-saving version of searching Google and YouTube for hours and hours trying to figure out the world of podcasting. Trust me, as a busy mama of 3, I get it. You don't have a lot of time to be spent or wasted, I should say, searching the web, trying to find all the right ideas and all the amazing things that are out there, and you just end up overwhelmed. Trust me, I've been there, done that, took home the souvenir. But this podcast is going to help you in practical ways because twice a week we'll be delivering episodes that are going to give you steps to help you create a podcast your audience can't wait to listen to. So let's get right to it, shall we? So I mentioned in the introduction that we're going to be talking about working with virtual assistants. And today's guest, Sam Kabert, has so much experience with this. And he just brought so much wisdom to this interview. And I'm just grateful for all the knowledge because I've been talking about it forever and saying, I need to get someone to help me with my business, but I really didn't know where to start. So even when I was going back and listening to this interview and preparing it for today, I wrote down some more nuggets of wisdom that we talked about, and I had a few more aha moments because for me, it's not just about deciding what you need to outsource, right? Because there's probably some things that you're doing in your business that you can pass along to someone else. But for me, one of the biggest aha moments was the mindset. So I'm so glad we covered that in this interview today, and I won't keep y'all waiting too long, but I do want to tell you a little bit about my guest today, Sam Kabert. So Sam, it's so funny because his nickname is SwagSam. He is a believer in the power of a brand. Sam has launched several successful businesses and brands and was recognized in 2019 as one of the Silicon Valley Business Journal's 40 under 40 most successful and influential professionals. In addition to running a thriving swag business, Sam has been successful in many side hustles, produced various podcasts, launched multiple YouTube channels, and is the author of books about working with virtual assistants and goal settings. Sam has been working with VAs for 5 years, and he wants to share his tips, tricks, and mistakes, so you don't make the same, with others. So I just want to get right into today's episode because it's just so good. So here is my interview with Sam. All right, Profit Podcast listeners, I'm so excited to introduce to you today, Sam Kabert. So welcome to the show, Sam.
Hey, Crystal, so happy to be here. I've been listening to your podcast and I'm a huge fan, so I'm excited to be a guest on your pod.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. I'm like the topic that we are diving into today. I'm so excited because I kind of selfishly had you on the show because I want to know more about this because this is what I'm diving into right now. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, I'll try to keep this semi-brief, okay? I might ramble and just feel free to cut me off. So yeah, my name's Sam Kabert. I have a personal brand that is SwagSam, and that's because I sell promotional products, aka swag. I like to joke that our industry has an identity crisis. Branded merch, swag, tchotchkes, advertising specialties, you name it. I think swag has a cool name, so I own that. Anyways, I got the personal brand name SwagSam kind of as a joke back in 2012. I joined my family's business and they do office supplies. And they're actually the last independently owned office supply company in Silicon Valley, which probably makes sense, right? There shouldn't be that many these days. Anyways, at the time, I had already had my swag business I started right out of college, and then I kind of merged it with the family business because promotional products and office supplies are complementary offerings. And I went to the industry conference, and at the conference, the office supply conference, my peers kind of looked at me kind of funny, and I kind of looked at them kind of funny because these guys are talking about toner and furniture and, maybe Jansen and Keurig selling coffee in the break room and, maybe pens and paper, office supplies. So I'm talking about swag. So, we didn't really see eye to eye in terms of like our offering. So one of the girls jokingly called me Swag Sam, and that was back in 2012. And I jokingly would tell people, oh yeah, my name's Swag Sam, right? And then in 2016, I, re- I was- I didn't mention this. I said that the company was in Silicon Valley, but I grew up in Silicon Valley. I moved back to Silicon Valley in 2012. Fast forward 2016, I was the chair of the Silicon Valley Young Professionals for a few years, on the board of a few different nonprofits. And I was really trying to make a name for myself in Silicon Valley. And for a guy that sells promotional products and is not in tech or startup or something like that, it's not that sexy in Silicon Valley, right?
But I'm just
So
sitting here thinking, like, all those big companies, they need swag too. So come on, yeah, you're on the right path.
oh, right. Yeah, those are my clients, but like, in terms of like recognition and making a name for yourself, like quick story, our business, the office supply company, was turning 35 years old whenever it was, maybe 2015, I think it was. And all my dad wanted was an article in the Silicon Valley Business Journal. That's all he wanted. And he doesn't ask for much. So I was like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to get that. So he started the company going door to door selling and repairing typewriters in 1980. And then he built it into this business that's been around for 35 years, the last remaining office supply store, et cetera. And here I am, second generation, carrying the torch. And, now we're doing video production, graphic design, in addition to swag. So there's a lot more. So he got one of his old typewriters, and it took me a couple of hours to figure out how to type this letter on a typewriter, because I wanted it to be authentic and tell the story, right? And I tried really hard getting their attention, and crickets, nothing. And I think that's really when I truly had the chip on my shoulder, because I was like, I need to do something. And I looked around, and I saw friends from college doing podcasts and YouTube, and I saw some industry friends doing it. And I go, I can do this. Like, why not? And I go, I also have like this SwagSam brand that I'm not doing anything with. Like, it's just a joke. Like, there's no one in the swag industry that is like, really representing us really in a content space strongly. So I go, there's an opportunity here. So long story short, we I chaired the young professionals group, and one of my good friends, Sergio, he's been with the group forever, and he and I kind of did it in tandem. And he's like just that charismatic guy, big smile, everyone loves him, that type of stuff. And there was three of us. The other guy, his name's Palvinder. He has a video production company, and he does like amazing videos, right? So I was looking at this like, we have a perfect team right here to set up a podcast. It took me 3 months to convince these guys to do it. And ultimately, at a trade show for the swag industry, there were some guys doing a live podcast, and I literally took a quick little video from my iPhone, sent it to my friends, and go, hey, I'm coming back in 2 days. Sergio, you're coming over to my house, and we're doing this thing. So then he did it. And I like to joke that I was like Zoolander, the part where they go, it's inside the computer, and they're like kind of jumping up, right? That was us. We were talking inside the computer and being like, I guess we just hit record. We had no idea what we were doing.
Love it. I love it.
Yeah. And then before you know it, I start listening to podcasts on how to podcast, like JLD's type content, and now your content. This is a couple years ago. And I went to Podcast Movement and just totally entrenched myself. And it was like, okay, now I get how to do this. And we bought better equipment. We're interviewing movers and shakers, and we're now partners with the Silicon Valley Business Journal. With like 3 months into doing the podcast, like this thing that was just like an idea, we started just talking to the computer, not knowing what we're doing. And we're partners with the Business Journal, but I couldn't get an article or even the time of day from this business story I was trying to get. And I'm just like, really? Are you kidding? And I'm good friends with those guys. So it's not any shade on them or anything. It's just, the point is what you're doing, helping other entrepreneurs and just people in general to create a personal brand through podcasting. It works. Like, I mean, I turned this one podcast into a media company. We do events as well. We've had up to 6 podcasts, different shows on the media network. I've produced 9 podcasts, 5 of my own, went on to have a YouTube food show, and I wrote 3 books in a year. And my content has just taken off. This past summer, I was named to the 40 under 40 by the Silicon Valley Business Journal. So, I mean, like, literally podcasting was like, they talk about marijuana as a gateway drug. Podcast is your gateway into like your personal brand, really.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
yeah.
That's I love that. Podcasting is the gateway into your personal brand. That's going to be the quote for this episode because it's so true. Because if anybody's listening right now and you're thinking, you're kind of wavering, you're like, I think I might want to start a podcast. I might not, but I want people to take me seriously. I'm telling you, like, Sam is the perfect example right now. Just do it. Just try it. Like, what's the worst that can happen is you don't have any listeners for a while because people will eventually catch on and they'll start listening. And then this is actually why I really want to talk to Sam today is you can beef up your team with people who can help you get to that next level. So can you talk about what it's been like to work with so many podcasts and how you managed to do all the stuff that you're doing? Because I'm like, first of all, kudos to you, because that is a lot of stuff to do within probably the last 5 years?
3, not even 3.
3 years. 3 years. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome.
Being a woman in business comes with its own unique set of challenges, but also so many opportunities. We get ahead by leaning in to what makes us different from business as usual. I'm Samantha Hartley, host of Profitable Joyful Consulting, inviting you to a special 6-episode series exploring the experience of being a woman in business. You want to hear from women consultants who've hit $1 million, who sell 6-figure engagements, or who've broken their own revenue ceilings? Yeah, those are my clients, and they'll be sharing too. Join me for 6 must-listen episodes that tackle key challenges for women consultants.
Follow Profitable Joyful Consulting on your favorite podcast app.
So how do you manage all of this?
Well, thank you, Crystal. I've cloned myself, not scientifically, but branding was no. So basically, my new podcast is called Clone Yourself, where I teach entrepreneurs how to scale their business by working with virtual assistants. So the key has really been VAs, and it's a mindset shift to look at VAs as if they were your employees. Now, for me, my VA journey has been going on for about 10 years or so. And it started with the 4-hour work week. I think, a lot of people have read Tim Ferriss's
Yes.
book, right?
I love it. I love that book. Yes.
Right. And at the time, I went to Fiverr, and I like to say when I first went to Fiverr, it was like going to the candy store and trying a bunch of samples of taffy, right? And then you leave the candy store and you're like kind of unfulfilled, and you're just like, well, not really satisfied. That's kind of what I did with Fiverr. I was like, oh, $5 here, $5 there. Like, I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and just like trying different things. And of course, nothing ever happened, right? But when I there we don't need to go into my swag business, but now that is fully run by VAs as well. And through the process of doing that, I've really learned a lot about working with virtual assistants. But in the content world, when we first started doing the podcasting, I was spending my time editing the podcasts, and I I hate it. It's straight up. It was just like I'm not good at it, and there's a learning curve, and it's wasting my time. I should be behind the mic. I should be interviewing people. I should be doing strategic partnerships. So I sought out for a podcast editor pretty early on. So that was the first thing. This is answering your question, right?
Yes. Yeah. I
Okay,
love it.
cool.
Keep going. Keep going.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I have a podcast editor. She takes care of all the podcasts, and I look at Jalen as a part of our team, and even with our other shows on What Up Silicon Valley, the media network. I tell all the girls and the other people that have shows with us, like, don't worry about the editing. Use my account. Use my VAs. Like, I'm going to pay for everything. Like, all you need to do is show up, record your episode, and send it to our editor. Graphic design, that's another big thing. So A lot of your listeners probably won't like to hear this, and you may not like to hear this either, but I don't think we should be using Canva. Canva is an amazing online tool that helps non-graphic designers do design. I'll say that again. Canva is an online tool that helps non-graphic designers do design. So why are we doing Canva ourselves, right? So Canva is great, and I do recommend using it, but not yourself. And if you are a graphic designer and you sell graphic design services, that is like pretty much the only reason why I would say yes, like do graphic design yourself. Otherwise, work with a virtual assistant to set up your brand guidelines. And then you can bring on graphic designers to do your podcast images, to do different social media images, to make a media kit so you can be a guest on other people's podcasts, whatever it is. But we don't need to spend our time doing graphic design. And here's why. As a business owner, we typically value our time at $100 per hour. So just for easy math, we're going to say that it takes 60 minutes to do one design, whatever it is, right? There's 60 minutes of our time, $100 gone. If we were to hire a virtual assistant graphic designer, a good going rate is $30 an hour. And a lot of people listening will be like, whoa, that sounds expensive. And the truth is, it might be a little expensive. I like to use conservative numbers. I like to pay more for my VAs because I look at VAs as if they were employees. And therefore, if I have 10, 12 virtual assistants, I'm still saving money in the long run because I don't have a single employee, right? Because I'm using specialists. Anyway, so going back to the ROI example, if this person, this virtual assistant, is a specialist in graphic design, they could probably do the task in half the amount of time as you because they're specialists. So let's say it's $30 an hour. Now they're doing 30 minutes, so it's 15 bucks. So all of a sudden, you get an hour back of your time and you're saving $85. You would have spent $100 on yourself in time minus the 15 that you actually spent on the VA, you're saving $85. Now, if you look at that and you were to scale that out over how many hours you would spend doing graphic design or doing podcast editing or to upload it to the different hosting sites and, promoting on social media, and you really scale that out, your mind will be like, whoa, look at all this time I can save. And it's really one of those things, it's almost like a leap of faith. Anyways, to go back to the different roles, podcast editor, graphic design, I typically have another person that would do the upload. Sometimes I do show notes. I'm going back to asking the VAs to do that. But yeah, so that takes a little bit longer because the virtual assistant would probably have to listen to the episode, right? And then write a summary. I typically make a template, so it's just fill in the blank for them where they can put in the SEO as well and the title and that type of stuff. And then there's standard operating procedures. So they can upload it to WordPress, to your hosting site, and then the social media is a whole nother aspect. That person could also promote it on social media. Then definitely a website developer or web developer. I don't like doing techie stuff. I joke that I'm the least techie millennial in Silicon Valley. So I like to have a web editor that can help me with all the website stuff and make it look good and all that type of stuff. So there's really like 4 or 5 people on the podcast project, and it's all managed on Trello. And that's just kind of a quick overview how it kind of looks behind the scenes. And the goal is for you as the podcaster to be having this interview that Crystal and I are doing right now. And before this interview, we've talked on the phone a couple times, right? So there's the strategic partnerships. And I mean, let's be real. A lot of us don't like having these phone calls, right? Like it's like interruption in the day. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I have calls from 12 to 4 or whatever it is. Like, it's not like we don't like talking to people. We like talking to people, but we need to make the time for it. And when we start to look at it and be like, oh, I have a call, it's because you feel overwhelmed because you're doing so much other stuff. If you're not doing that other stuff, then you can show up to these calls and do them more often to focus on the strategic partnerships. So it's really just focusing on your secret sauce, your strengths, and the things that drive revenue. Or there's two real reasons why people would want to work less, right? It's either to spend more time with your family, to travel with your friends, that type of stuff, or it's to grow your business and focus on revenue driving tasks. Like for me these days, it's for free time more than really increasing revenue. But whatever it is, realize that you got into business for yourself. And as soon as you start to become a slave to your business, that's when it's time to really reevaluate and being like, what am I doing with my time? Right.
Right.
So,
Well, no, I love everything that you just said. And because I know my audience so well, they are in two camps of thought right now. The first one is thinking, this is amazing. Why did I never think about this? I'm going to go find someone to work with immediately because that is what I want. I want to just work on showing up for my audience and creating content. Okay. That is the one side of everyone's brain that's listening right now. The other side is saying, Sam, I am just getting started. This podcast is costing me money. I'm not making any money. I don't know when is this going to pay off. So what would you say to that person who is like, yeah, that sounds great to outsource all of that, but I don't even know where to get started or how much it's going to cost. What would you say to that person?
yeah, and I mentioned it very briefly. I said the leap of faith, but that's
Right.
kind of the thing for entrepreneurs. We have to take that leap of faith and we have to bet on ourselves, and at the end of the day, like if you cannot afford to pay your bills, right? Like if you truly can't afford it, then you can't afford it. Like, I mean,
Right.
it is what it is. You can always start small. I recommend FreeUp. It's with an extra E, FREEEUP.com, freeup.com. And they are the best virtual assistant agency I have come across. They match you with VAs. So instead of going to the big name sites you're familiar with where you get hundreds of applicants, they're just FreeUp is just going to match you with 2 to 3 VAs, and they're going to match you within the same day or the same week. So it's really quick. And it takes less than 5 minutes to put out a job posting. In my podcast, Clone Yourself, I talk about how to do a job posting and about not taking it too seriously, that type of stuff. But anyway, so yeah, FreeUp was going to help with the recruitment side. Another nice thing I like about them too is that you can set weekly, hourly limits. So you can put a podcast editor and maybe they're $15 an hour. You can put 2 hours per week. So you're only spending a maximum of 30 hours per week. In my trainings and in this free download, I think we're linking in the show notes, probably cloneyourselfu.com/3ways. I have an email template you can use that basically says like, hey, VA name, and then it says whatever the project is, maybe it's podcast editing. Here's the link to the podcast. Could you put the intro and outro on and level out the sound, whatever the directions are. Please don't spend more than an hour on this. That's very important. Whatever your time is, maybe it's 30 minutes. But if you say, please don't spend more an hour on this, if you need more time, let me know, then you covered yourself. And you also say, well, now I'm getting to some other stuff. But the point there about the time is exactly what you're budgeting for, right? And I think we can all afford, little chunks here and there to take small, and then you just grow from there. And you're going to start to see, wow, I have more time now to do the revenue driving tasks. And then
Right.
you really start to scale up. So
No, I love that. So we will 100% link to everything that Sam and I talk about here today. So you can go to the show notes and find everything. But I love what you said about because this is my brain. This is my brain on a budget. I like to think of this is my set amount of dollars that I have this month or this week or however you're doing your budget or this quarter. And I think that starting with a dollar amount in mind, maybe it's $50 a month, maybe that's all you can afford, and I think that that's a fantastic place to start. Now, would you suggest, if I was coming to you and saying, Sam, I really need some help, I need to do this, how would you go about figuring out what tasks I should offload? Because for me, I'm like, oh, I know that I hate to do this, but I also, this takes me so long. So I'd rather do, like, how would someone go about figuring out which things to offload to someone else?
Yeah, great question, Crystal. Thanks for asking. There's two things there. There's first uncovering the tasks you actually do, because there's the tasks that we think we do, and there's the tasks that we actually do, right? And in that download, I think that's in there. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure it is. Anyways, it's called the time audit. And this worksheet, you might have heard this, Crystal, on one of the pods, but it's kind of a doozy. So basically for 5 days straight, or even better if you do it for 2 weeks, you're going to log everything you do in a business day and what type of task it is. So you actually see what you do. And then from there, we can start to prioritize and game plan what we're going to take off of your plate. Now, to do that, I have a theory called subjective versus objective tasks. I shouldn't even call that theory. It's just a principle. An objective task being something that's done correct or incorrect. It's black and white. And subjective, it leaves room to interpretation. So it's so much easier to train for the objective tasks, because they are easier. So that might be a good place to start if you're new to working with VAs, because it'll give you some confidence. If you start right off the bat with something that is subjective and it's not very clear, you're setting yourself up for failure. And even if that is something that's more important to get off your plate, because it's taking too much of your time, you might have to take a step back and realize, I don't have experience in working with people remotely. Maybe you don't have experience in managing people, hiring people, any of that. So there's definitely a learning curve there. But really, you want to game plan everything. When you look at your tasks, I like to, not so much sales minded anymore these days, but when I was building my business, I would use dollar signs instead of stars on my to-do list. And then I'd put $1 for the thing that was most important, then go down the list, then put another dollar sign, then up to 3. And then the things that had $3 I was like, oh, that's going to make me the most money, so I'm going to do that first, right? So that's a good way to prioritize. It could be stars. I actually like to do letters these days. So when you're looking at your tasks, like say it's podcast editing, maybe you put that as an A. Maybe you're looking at some finance thing, you put that as a B, because that's totally different type of activity. You see graphic design for your podcast or whatever, put that back as an A because it relates to the podcast. However your brain works and you want to formulate those, go for it. But then you just look at those and you look at the things that are essential to you doing, and then you keep doing those. You kind of take those off the list because you're trying to build a list of things to offload. And then you just prioritize it from the easiest to train to the hardest, and definitely don't start with the hardest first, right?
Right. Well, it's so funny because I don't know which podcast episode this was in of yours that I recently listened to, but you said one thing about the time audit. You're like, everyone complains about it. They don't want to do it, but you got to do it. So I love that you said that. And then the second thing was, people always like come back to you and say, well, I don't have time to train a VA. And it's like, well, then you don't have to, then it's not gonna work. Like you said something about to the effect of, you wouldn't hire an employee without setting aside time to train them. So if you want this type of relationship to work, essentially, if you want to grow and scale, you have to set aside that time. So I love that you said that. And I don't know which episode that was in, but that was really good. I think it was one of your first ones.
I appreciate you bringing that up, because all I said earlier was the mindset shift of looking at them as employees, but I didn't really explain it. It's those little things right there where you realize that you would never hire an employee and not have a game plan. You would never hire an employee and not have like a job description, KPIs, or visualize what your life would be like, what your business would be like with them. And yet for some reason, we go and hire VAs with no plan, and we get frustrated when we don't make the time to train them. And it's just like, when I made this simple mindset shift of looking at VAs as if they were my employees, that's truly when I started to be able to scale. So thank you for bringing that up, because
No,
I forgot to mention that.
I love that. No, it's so true because it's easy. I had a recent interaction with Rachel Hollis at Amy Porterfield's event, and it was all about hiring someone. And she was like, whatever you do, don't just hire someone to do a task. You want to hire someone that's going to take on a project for you. Like she said, don't hire just soldiers. You want generals. So I love so much that you talked about, yeah, it may be $30 an hour to hire someone as opposed to $5 an hour for someone just to do a quick task for you. But how much extra training are you going to have to put in? And how much more work is it going to be on you? Yeah, it might be cheaper, but it's going to cost you more in time, either fixing what they did or having to explain things a lot more than you would if you were hiring an expert or a specialist. I like that you use the word specialist. That's great.
Specialist for sure. And the other thing too is there's a certain point in your business as a solopreneur, which most podcasters are, right, where you're getting to the point where you need extra help, but you can't afford to hire a full-time employee, right? And a full-time employee, like, I don't know, maybe $60,000. That's fair to say, more or less. Not only that, you have all the behind the scenes headaches, and I'm talking soft and hard headaches, whether it be, just the legal stuff that goes into it, or they call in sick, last minute, whatever it may be. We all know there's a ton of different headaches that come with employees. So if you're looking at an employee as $5,000 ish, give or take, that you're spending a month, right? And you could spend $2,000 on virtual assistants, but really be specific because they're specialists. Employees, a lot of times I say this, so that's part of like the savings when you start to grow a little bit more, and when you start to really scale, like just the differences. What was the other thing I wanted to say about employees? Maybe it'll come back to me, but yeah.
No, I think that's a great mindset. And I think that since we're on the subject of working with someone, how can you develop that relationship with the VA? Like, so let's say, you work with, what is it? Free Up? Is that what you said it was called? I'm going to link to that in the show notes. So you find someone, they match you, everything, like you're off to the races. How can you develop that relationship, I guess, because I think a lot of people who have been solopreneurs forever and they've never brought anybody onto their team, and they're kind of, I don't want to say controlling, but y'all know who I'm talking about. You are controlling and you want to do everything. And I can say that because this is me. I'm not just calling y'all out. This is me too. But how can you really develop that relationship when you're working with someone and you're still a little nervous, even though you've said, okay, I'm going to pay you to do this? I guess, does it just go back to that leap of faith and trusting someone else to do their job?
Yeah, I think there's something huge in all of us with letting go. I definitely am the control freak too. And once you have to come to your own terms with letting go and truly understanding what it means to let go to grow. Like you can't grow until you let go. And once you truly feel that, you start to feel a little bit better about it. And also visualization, visualizing the time you're going to get back and remembering your why you're doing this. That's a marathon. But really, that's just like kind of like fluffy stuff. The tactical side is tiny tasks to big projects. And this is how you're going to develop the trust. Instead of just giving a project manager for your entire podcast, for this person to manage your podcast editor, your graphic designer, and all the different elements, and just have them take on everything, you're going to take one small bite-sized chunk. So what I like to do is start small. let me back up. Before I get into tiny tasks to big projects, also new hire kits. Like think about a corporate. I sell swag, right? So I sell a lot of new hire kits and corporate clients, and they make a big deal about your first day. It's like, remember the last time you had your first day at job, right? Like they try to make it a big first day. Now, admittedly, I don't actually do this, but you could do something where you send them a special email, or maybe it's like an Amazon gift card, or like it's just something nice. You just, it could be as simple as like, hey, I'm so excited to have you here. Like let's take 10-30 minutes or whatever to get to know each other. Like, who cares? You can easily do something remote and virtual to make them feel a part of the team. So give them the warm and fuzzies, right? And that's optional. I talk about doing that. I don't really do that, but I think that's good for certain people to do, for sure. So tiny tasks to big projects, this is to develop that trust and to really get you comfortable with letting go more and more. And it's going to start with a bite-sized chunk that will lead to a bigger project. So you just got to look at whatever the project is. Like, for example, graphic design. I asked my VA to batch my graphic design podcast images in like maybe by 10 or so. So I'll send her the titles. And at this point, we have such a good rhythm and flow and cadence and all that. We've been working together for 2-3 years, believe it or not. So I can just send her the titles and she'll make awesome images. And I just know they're going to be good. When you're getting started, you might have to give more direction. But the point is, I'll give her 10, right? To get to that point, I would need to start with one image and be like, okay, this is my brand. And a lot of us don't have brand guidelines. That might be a good time to start and make a brand guideline. So that will help them out. Whatever, you're going to have a lot of back and forth in figuring out design, because that's a subjective thing. It's a little objective if you know exactly what you want, but most of us don't. Yeah. And it maybe what you're doing is you're currently making all your podcast images in Canva, and you're just teaching them how to do it in Canva, and you're teaching them what type of images should go where and whatever. But you start on just one image, and then you feel rhythm from there. Maybe you give them 3 images, and then before you know it, you're giving them bulk projects. So tiny tasks to big projects is big for letting go.
Oh, I love it, because I think that you just spoke to that person who was like, okay, like we're y'all feel that? We're peeling back the layers. We're easing y'all into this, because I don't want you to have any excuses of why you can't do this. Because for a long time, for me personally, it's been about, well, it's mine. I need to do it because it's mine. But like you said, there's so much to be said about letting go to grow and being able to scale and keep delivering amazing content, because it does get to a point where everything's just kind of mediocre, because I'm not a graphic designer and I don't have a specialty in website development and doing all these other fun things that sound amazing and they sound cool. And it's like, that's what you have to do to grow. But if you don't have the tools and you don't have, like, please outsource your stuff, people. Like, we are telling you that we just broke it down exactly how to do it step by step. So I want to know, what is the number one way having a VA has impacted you on a personal level and on a business level?
Ooh, I love that question. This is my midlife crisis year at 30 years old, going into 31. So I don't know what that says about my lifespan, but I went through some spiritual stuff and some awakening type stuff, and I started a new podcast called Soul Seeker, which is about plant medicine. So it's a little, out there. And it's really about mindfulness and spirituality, but the tagline and a common theme that I'm really talking about with the Soul Seeker project is soul life balance rather than work life balance, because I believe the work life balance is broken, and maybe it was built to be broken. But the point is, work is a component of life. The fact that we're looking at like, oh, I need to separate my work and my life, and mental health is on the rise more than ever, yet we have everything at our fingertips, right? It's crazy. The thing I look at is, we're so consumed by work. There's this conditioning and programming, and the way our society is built, we all need to make a buck, to survive and thrive. And I am living near the ocean now. I just moved away outside of Silicon Valley to Santa Cruz to work on my soul life balance. And I'm 60 seconds away from the ocean. I'll probably go surf after this. I stand up paddleboard and I look at the sea otters and the seals out there. And I'm like, man, the animals are so interesting. Like, their only concern is just to survive. Like,
Right.
we have all this other stuff, right? So for me, I love the virtual assistant business model because now I work, well, actually, probably for the past 3 years or so, I've been working less than 4 hours a day, and my sales continue to increase because I'm able to spend my time selling on my business. And whether that means meeting with clients in person or taking phone calls with clients, or because I sell swag, right? That's how I monetize. So yeah, it's a lot more free time. But the beauty of the VA business model is that it gives non-entrepreneurs a way to have soul life balance as well, because virtual assistants in a lot of ways are very similar to entrepreneurs because they get to choose when they want to work, they get to choose the type of work they do and who they work with, which is very entrepreneurial. And I love it because it gives them so much flexibility as well. And it's just sickening to me to look at the way our society is built and how it's all about work. And a lot of times I face like guilt, and like part of my depression, things I go through is like, well, I have it all figured out for myself and I'm living this awesome life. And then, you look at everyone else and it's like, fuck, like you feel guilty, right? And so that's kind of my why, to help others, because you can't take down the system and just change everything, right? But like,
Right.
entrepreneurship isn't for everyone. We're living in an amazing time where you could be an Uber driver, the gig economy. You could be a freelancer, a virtual assistant, all that type of stuff. There's so many ways for you to dictate the type of work you want to do and how you want to do it these days. So it's I think that kind of answers your
Yeah,
question.
no, it did. I think that was
Yeah,
fantastic. I think that, you know, I love your outlook on it because it's so simple. It really is. Like, you take all the extra like stuff. And I mean, I know that you know your numbers, you know the KPIs and the ROIs and how it can tactically affect your business and what you're doing. But at the end of the day, you only have to work 4 hours a day, or you only have to work, a few weeks a year or whatever it is. But it's like you have the power back in your own life. And I love that so, so much. So thank you for bringing that message to the podcast. But I want to know, I have a few rapid fire questions for you real fast. So are you
sweet.
up for that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So who would be, for all of your podcast, I don't care which one it is, who would be your dream guest that you would love to have on your podcast?
Oh man, I wish I had time to think about this more.
Just
Uh,
one.
Yeah, I had a few names pop up, and oh man, I'm just gonna say Jesse Itzler.
Oh, that's such a good one.
Well,
That's
he told,
such a good one.
yeah, I need to lock that down. But yeah, yeah,
Put it out in the universe. That's
I'll
the
put
one.
it out. All right.
And if y'all do not know who Jesse Itzler is, and it's funny because I only know Jesse Itzler because I'm the biggest fan of Sarah Blakely. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
really
Yeah.
why I know who Jesse Itzler is. But we will link to go follow him on Instagram, please, because he is just, he's superhuman, basically. Like, he's
Yeah.
so cool. So that's a great one. Okay, my next question is, what's one piece of advice you'd like to tell someone who is brand new to podcasting?
Well, before you said niched it to podcasting, I was going to say you can't be everything to everyone.
Oh,
And
that's
then I
good.
was like, let me think of something else. And then I'm like, no, that still applies. So it kind of goes with the theme of this call. You can't do it all. You can't be the podcast editor. You can't be the graphic designer. You can't be scheduler, the promoter, and all that. Like, just my first business, I tried to be, this is rapid fire. So yeah, you can't be everything to everyone.
I
Boom.
love it. I love it. Okay, and then what's one thing you wish you would have known when you first started podcasting?
That is a good question. um, how long it takes to get for iTunes to approve you, I guess.
Yes, that's such a good one. No, that's such a good one because a lot of people don't know that. Okay, guys, so if you don't know this, when you're launching, a lot of people think you can just show up to the party on iTunes like the day of that you want to launch. No, guys, and I'll do an entire episode about that because that's such a good point. It can take up to 2 weeks. Sometimes I've seen it take longer. So that is a great point to end on for sure. So Sam, thank you so much for being here. Can you please tell us where everybody can find you? Tell us about your other podcasts. I'm going to link to all of this in the show notes, but can you tell us just all the places that you want people to come hang out with you and learn more about what you do?
Yeah, thank you, Crystal. I appreciate being here. This has been fun. So home base is swagsam.com, but having said that, I need to update that site. I need to work with the VAs to update that, but it's not a priority, so it hasn't been done, right? Because it's all about priorities. Anyways, the Clone Yourself podcast is Clone Yourself. You can find it on iTunes or any of your favorite podcast listening apps, and the website is cloneyourself.com. For Soul Seeker, it's spelt wrong for legal issues because I didn't want to get into trademark battle or anything like that. So it's Soul and then Seeker, SEEKR. And the website is Soul Seeker, then a Z after. So Soul Seekers. Funky.com. And what else? What Up Silicon Valley, if you're interested, whatupsv.com. Our food show on YouTube, Eat Up SV, as in siliconvalley.com. And yeah, that's about it.
Well, we will link to all those. And just so y'all know, for any of you that are thinking about joining us in profit podcasting, Sam has actually prepared something super cool. So can you tell us just a little sneak peek about what people can expect of what's going on in profit podcasting?
Yeah, so I have a course for you guys, and it is how to hire and manage your first virtual assistant. So everything we talked about today, but more intentional, very outlined. It's sequential, intentional. What else rhymes? But yeah, it's totally going to give you the step-by-step process that I take anytime I start a new project. And I've done this with my books, with my podcasts, with my YouTube shows, with my actual business. It works. So yeah, just gotta be committed and you'll be off to the races with scaling your business with VAs.
Yeah, so thank you so much. I'm so glad that we were able to connect in the way that we have, and I look forward to working with you and working with VAs in the future, and you just coming back on the show and teaching us all the other stuff. Because I feel like we could talk about this for hours, but I'm like, oh, we need to cut it off because we're just going to go down a bunch of rabbit holes. But this was such a great interview. So thank you so much, Sam, for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Crystal. I'm a huge fan of your work and appreciate to be partnering up with you. So yeah, definitely do it again soon.
Yeah. Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, Crystal.
Oh my gosh. It was just such a great interview and such a treat to chat with Sam and learn all the things that we talked about today. I know this episode is a little bit longer than we've had lately, but I couldn't cut out any of the goodness that happened within that interview because it was so good. I hope that you found so much value in it, and I want you to go grab what Sam has to offer for working with virtual assistants. He's going to show you exactly how to get started. So go to cloneyourselfyou.com/profit to grab the freebie that he was talking about today because you need it. You need it. I went and downloaded it. It's so good for trying to figure out how a VA can help you and what steps you need to take. And it's just such an awesome freebie. So you need to go grab it. You can go to the show notes and get the exact link at crystalprofit.com/episode 106. But that's all I have for you today, guys. This was such a great interview. I'm so excited about this episode. And again, if you're interested in profit podcasting, the doors are closing very soon. So go to profitpodcasting.com to check out all the details and see how you can enroll before the doors close forever in 2019. I say forever. I said that wrong. Hang on. Let me back up. Before the doors close for 2019, because we'll be back in 2020. Who are we kidding? But I don't have all the dates figured out. So it could be in April or May. It could be next summer until we open the doors again. So if you're ready to start, launch, and market your podcast, I encourage you to join us now. Again, it's at profitpodcasting.com, and you can find all the details and all the information. But that does it for today. So if this is your first time tuning in, I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. Let us know what you think. You can give us a rating between 1 and 5 stars. You can leave a comment and tell me what you thought about the show. Tell me what part of the episode was your favorite or your biggest takeaway. If you've listened to a few episodes, which episode has been the most impactful for you and your podcast? Again, you can find the show notes at crystalprofit.com/episode 107. And remember, as we always say, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Hey, Profit Podcast listeners. Thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message, because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you, and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, "Send Crystal a text message." And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous. Or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, "Send Crystal a text message." And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.